It's easy to believe in something when you win all the time. The losses are what define a man's faith.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cosmere Connections. We're a bunch of book-loving nerds trying to find the secrets of Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere as we reread the entirety of its story from Book 1 to Book 16 billion. Today, we are joined by Swiggity Swoo.
Ash fell from Canada.
Oh, boy.
So accurate for
He
right now.
wins.
Time and place, but...
We are joined by John.
He ate my horse.
Yes!
Kay's here, too.
We're going to do what Kelsier taught us. We're going to survive.
And I'm ReaderWarrior. And today we are going to be talking about Mistborn, the Well of Ascension, Epilogue, Ars Arcanum, and overall thoughts. This will be our final episode on the Well of Ascension, at least until the movie comes out. So we're going to try to cover every single thing that we really liked about it, both in a spoiler-free and then in a spoiler context. So we're going to cover the epilogue, then we're going to do a ranking system, and then we're going to give, and that'll probably segue into thoughts and comments. And then spoiler section versions.
What kind of ranking system are we going to do? We only got 2 books so far.
True, but we could argue if it's higher, lower, or equal. There are 3 different options.
So we can include the rest of the Cosmere.
There are
And yes,
3
I
different
will talk
options.
Right over you on that.
Nah, you're fine.
Here we go again.
So let's get into it. John, I believe you had the Sazed's journey part of this.
2 weeks later, Sazed was back at the Conventicle of Saren, something that took him 2 or 3 days only with full metal mines. He compares his notes to those of Kwaan on the steel plate hung upon the wall. The 2 did not match. Sazed reads the line he did not pay enough attention to. Everything not set in steel cannot be trusted. He then continues on to read the rest of Kwaan's untainted message.
And you're just going to stop there? Okay.
Yep.
I hate... This is what I love about Sanderson. It's the first line you read in the book.
Yeah.
It's the
All of his
first
books are like that,
line.
though.
Ah.
It's always
And yet-
the first line.
Still, it took me by surprise. I didn't catch on until the very, very end.
Because
The
you
first
don't...
time you completely blindsided me, like...
Because you don't think this... Something is changing it. You just think like, oh, set in steel, so it's not marred by history.
Right.
One of my friends just finished reading this book, and she like got to the end, and she was like, "What?" She like flipped back to like the beginning of it. She's like, "Excuse me."
It
Oh my god, it's all there!
blew my mind.
But it's like,
John,
of course you're not going to pay attention to it. Like, if you're going through this book and you're getting to the epigraphs, you're just like, well, I don't know what that means. And then you're like moving on with your life, And it's like, of course you're not going to notice like a word or 2 has been changed unless you're very astute, in which case I'm sure this would be super satisfying to deduce as it's going along.
Gotta be honest, the first couple times I read this book, definitely did not read the epigraphs because I just wanted to get to the story. completely ignored the epigraphs, did not read them, just skipped over them. I was also in middle school at the time, so like, cut me some slack.
I would recommend if this is like your first time reading, you don't need to read the epigraphs because anything that needs comment upon is in the actual book. Because you got Sazed and Tinbuil arguing over changes, and they actually notice some in it.
It gets to be a bit much. Like, if you could catalog everything that they're saying, that would be impressive. Like, but once you have the full context, then it becomes a lot easier and a lot more pertinent, I think. Like the epigraphs become some of the best parts of the book.
Hmm.
I do recommend reading the epigraphs though, and not just skipping over them.
Yeah, it's more of a
because
if you
they
can, please do, but don't stress over it if you're trying to memorize it.
Yeah, don't memorize them, but just read them. Don't just skip over them. Don't be me. Don't be Kay in middle school skipping over the epigraphs because she just didn't want to read them.
That's our new tagline. Don't be K in middle school.
We all do dumb things when we're little.
I still do. So
John, you sounded like the guy from something witty entertainment for the Christmas episode.
Oh, I was going for that dude from TikTok who reads the signs that are like badly spelled.
Oh, I've seen that.
Gonna be honest, don't go on TikTok, so I don't know who that is.
yeah, they should pound those signs into steel because anything not set in metal can't be trusted.
Oh boy.
Good thing most street signs are in fact metal, so we can read them, then we can trust them.
But they're not pounded, they're just painted over.
Yeah, but
That's
that
a
paint
good
is actually
question.
a highly reflective metallic paint. So
So
it is kind of in
We
metal.
can argue that in the
Question.
spoiler section.
sorry, I just want to state this question real quick. Then we can argue it in the spoiler section. Is that would paint that has like metal in it count, or would it not? Also, would something painted on metal count as being in metal, or would that be able to be messed with?
I definitely think that's a spoiler section argument.
Yeah, definitely ask that question again in spoilers because I have a lot to say.
Yeah. We'll be sure to come back to that. So I took the opportunity, because I've been doing it throughout the entire book, of going over all of the changes that were in the epigraphs and what was in the actual story. So instead of reading that entire passage of Kwaan's warning, I'm just going to bring up what was specifically changed. So from chapter 7, we have, I am afraid, however, that all I have known, that my story will be forgotten. I am afraid that the world that is to come, afraid that my plans will fail, afraid of a doom worse than the deepness. It was changed to afraid that Alendi will fail, afraid of a doom brought by the deepness. Chapter 10 is, here was a man who towered over others, a man who, despite his youth and clothing, demanded respect. And then it was changed to, here was a man, remember that man in Terrace is gender neutral. Here was a man who was small of stature, but seemed to tower over others, a man who demanded respect. Chapter 13, when I finally had the realization, finally connected all the signs of the anticipation to Alendi, I was so excited. And it was changed to connected all the signs of the anticipation to him, which seems to be a weird change if Alendi was the wrong hero.
Well, it's then instead of naming the person, it's changing it to that gender neutral pronoun, which
But
could
if-
then be interpreted as her instead.
But you're saying a person's name, and we already know that he was wrong. I just feel like that one's weird. Like, I understand what you mean, but if he had changed, like, if whatever it was changed it from something that was like gender specific to gender neutral, I would understand. But it changed a name that we know to be wrong.
But I guess the idea is that, like, whoever is supposed to be reading this and thinking like, oh, like that sounds like Vin, and so like if it says Lendi directly, it kind of takes you out of it. I feel like,
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
which was probably the thought behind it. Not saying it's like super effective or smart to do necessarily, but
Chapter 34, I thought myself the announcer, the prophet foretold to discover the hero of ages. This is the big one. I thought myself the holy first witness, the prophet foretold to discover the hero of ages. This was the one that made Sazed realize something's wrong.
One that tipped him off.
Yes.
Because that's what the people called him.
Mm-hmm. In 36, at best, I've amplified his virtues, creating a hero where there was none. At worst, I fear that all we believe may have been corrupted. Whilst it was changed to, at worst, I fear I have corrupted all that we believe. That one's a pretty big change to hide this thing that's been changing the terrorist prophecies.
Yeah, it's basically changing it from his virtues to like everyone's beliefs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's taking the shift from Elendi to a more general prophecy.
Yeah. Then in 55, Alendi won't know that he has been deceived, that we've all been deceived. He won't listen to me. It was changed to be Alendi won't know that he has been deceived. And then that's it. Cut out all the rest. Just delete. 56, if Rashek fails to lead Alendi astray, then I've instructed the lad to kill Alendi. And then it was changed to, then I have instructed the lad to kill my former friend, which I guess this falls into the same vein as our previous comment on Alendi and him.
Mm.
And then the big one, the really big one, 59, Alendi must not reach the Well of Ascension, for he must not be allowed to release the thing that is imprisoned there. And it was changed to, he must not take the power for himself.
That's a no-no.
Uh-oh. And that was all the changes that we're seeing in the book compared to all the epigraphs.
The last one seems like the biggest one by far, though, huh? Because that's what ends up being kind of the bad thing that happens.
Mm-hmm.
If Vin had just taken the power for herself,
To save Elend.
She wouldn't have released whatever was there.
Again, Lord Ruler's last words. You don't know what I do for mankind.
You've been waiting to say that for how long?
Shouldn't it be Scadrian kind? Because he doesn't do it for the people of Roshar, that's for sure.
Anything else about the epigraphs?
Ooh.
What's
No,
up, John?
not from me. I thought of something else that we'll talk about later.
Okay. And I believe, Swiggity, you have the final section.
Yeah. So, switches over to our favorite Cosmere couple, Vin and Elend. And
honestly, power couple.
Mm-hmm.
at least 50% of the podcast loves this couple.
They're not a power couple, though. Sorry. Because they're not an actual couple, so they don't count. Sorry. Continue.
Wait, fine. Yasna and, well, spoilers.
I was gonna say. I like that one too, though.
Yeah.
Whatever that refers to.
Yeah.
You remember that one in that other book?
Yep. So, okay, we have confirmation that Elend is now a Mistborn.
Yes.
That's being dropped in this epilogue, which is awesome. Also, it's confirmed-ish where the original Allomancers came from, because Vin says that those beads at the Well of Ascension must have been how the Lord Ruler made them, or
What Elend ate. What she fed to him, that bead.
it turned him from a weenie into a Mistborn.
He was not a
callback.
weenie this entire book.
At that point, he was no longer a weenie.
He was a king. He was an emperor.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that, especially after everything that went down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we got Elend's Mistborn. We know kind of where the original Alamancers came from. And Vin is still thinking about that cryptic, disturbing voice she heard at the Well of Ascension saying, I am free.
I am free.
I have the power. Obviously, it's the only thing she can think about. She feels super guilty. Elend's trying to console her. Elend's trying to tell her there's nothing she could have done. But you know, Vin, she takes this stuff hard.
Mhm.
So they kind of ask, what are we going to do about the mist sickness? What are we going to do about, all this stuff? And Elend has a really great line, which was Kay's intro, saying, we're going to do what Kelsier taught us. We're going to survive.
Yeah. End of book.
Hey, can you give me 1 second? I have to plug in my computer.
Not allowed, Swiggity. How rude.
Absolutely.
He's
When
not
you
even
cut
up.
this out, how dare you?
He's not even on. He can't even hear us.
Nope.
Gosh, he's so rude. Having
Absolutely.
to go plug in his computer.
I don't even know why we keep him around.
Yeah, gosh.
Never mind that this whole thing was his idea.
Hello.
Okay, hello. Come back in 3, 2, 1. We had seen Elend grow up this entire book, and now after all of his comments on, I even wish I had some of the weaker metals. Like, he's a full Alamancer.
You guys like that last line of the book?
Yes.
No, I hated it. That's why I used it as my intro.
Why do you think it ends on that? Like, because the whole time.
I think it's a callback to the first book in a little bit, because it's like that's like Kelsier's whole thing was talking about surviving, and it's throwing back to that in the first book and pulling that into the end of this book as well.
Because in the Final
Reserve my
Empire,
answer because it's spoilery.
in the Final Empire, they had to survive against this God King that was basically overruling their government for 1,000 years and killed their entire people. And now they had overthrown, they had survived, and now we've got whatever was in the well is free. And it's a huge threat that the Lord Ruler was the only one capable of stopping. So I think it's also a reference to we've now got to get back into that mindset.
It's Hexus from Ferngully.
But I also think it's like a nice showcase that Elend is not completely different than what he was, because he made the promise in part 3 that he was going to join the Church of Survivor, and he had told Demu that it wasn't just a play, he was actually going to do it. And I feel like this is kind of a part of that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I was kind of thinking that, every time Kelsey is brought up before this, it's usually in reference to, would he have been better at this than I am able to do? No matter who's talking about it, especially Elend, especially Vin. So, like, by the end, we have Elend just being like, we're going to do what Kelsier taught us. Like, we have internalized everything. Like, we are good enough to do this. We are good enough to survive. Like, we're going to fight this, Vin. I love you.
Yeah.
And it's like one of my favorite lines, too. I was going to use it as my intro, but I'm really glad I didn't, because you did.
You'd have watched Kay frantically try to grab it.
Right?
I would have been like, pulls open book.
You'd have just been like, calm down.
I almost made that exact same joke.
Frantically grabs my phone, searches through quotes that I have written down on my phone.
Say adapt pewter.
I do in fact have a list of Sanderson quotes on the Notes app on my phone.
Smart.
One of my favorite is I write these words in steel. Like, that is, to me, one of those iconic Sanderson lines, right up there with Ash fell from the sky. Like,
Yeah. In which I can't
I
wait.
saw a great meme today. I have to share this one. You guys have probably already seen it, but which Cosmere world has more ash? Scadrial or Roshar?
Roshar, because it's got Moash.
Also Evie.
oh,
Oh, oh boy. Holy cow, I was not expecting a setup like that.
I write these words in memes.
For anything not set in memes will be cringe in 20-something odd days.
Okay, sorry. I know that was way tangential, but I thought you'd enjoy it.
I loved it. I remember, I don't know if I brought this up on the podcast, but I remember on the Shardcast forums, me and somebody were talking about how many sheets of how big would it book be if you made it out of metal and you actually inscripted like a 1-to-1 ratio of the pages to the book of sheets of metal.
Yeah, I think we might have talked about this on a previous episode. It would have to come down to how like small you could print out the letters, right?
Well, and also,
Yeah.
how thin
Yeah.
of a sheet of metal can you get before it loses its rigidity?
Mhm.
Because you could have like aluminum pages, but they would just you couldn't
Tear.
do anything with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be useless. But I think we've officially moved into the spoiler section. So, reader, do you want to give us our
No, we
little
have not.
outro?
We have not, because we've still got a few things to cover spoiler free.
Ah! Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about the book as a whole too a little bit, right?
Yeah, so before we do that, we've got the Ars Arcanum, which the only thing I really wanted to bring up is now there's this whole other section to it in the chart where we now see Malatium, which was the 11th metal, and Electrum now in the thing. In which special guest now we've got DragonKeiran joining us.
Woo!
Holy crap!
He came back!
Exciting!
You missed the meme dragon. You would have loved it. Uh-oh, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, only
Yes.
just
Yeah, but you're low.
Barely. I'm gonna turn your sound up on my side.
That's weird, but okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Turning his volume
Sound
up.
all right to me.
Well, if you guys
Dude.
can't hear me, then
You're good.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
Okay. I was gonna say, then I don't know if the audience would hear me, but
I
Okay.
boosted you a little bit.
So now joining us, we've got DragonKeiran. We're still in the spoiler freeze section. We've covered the epilogue. We're just now on the Ars Arcanum, and I don't think this conversation will go on that long. Because it was just to bring up the fact that a Malatium, which was the 11th metal, and Electrum are now in the Elementic chart.
yeah, nice. Have you guys talked about? I mean, my understanding is it's spoiler free. It's just words of Brandon. That there's actually someone writing the Ars Arcanum.
We have not mentioned that yet.
Nope.
But would you like to talk about that, Dragon?
So that's something that I never realized at first. But like they have it written, and you're like, oh yeah, this is interesting. This is cool. Like here's a bit about this. But it turns out that if you go on and listen to Brandon talk about his books when he goes to signings, one of the things that he's talking about is that there's an actual person that that's on World that's actually going through and like writing down about the book, and so like as they learn bits and pieces about the magic system, about allomancy, right, is they which are then able to then go and update it as they go along. So it's really cool to know that it's like Brandon doesn't just kind of throw out like his not just like, oh, there's just random things, but like sometimes oftentimes his maps are like maps people make in the book. Like his, the ending piece of the book is actually something from someone in the book, which is I always just find it's very kind of fun and interesting. So
also, the maps are also made by someone in world as well, which is really fun.
Exactly, which is just super fun. So we'll talk more about what's about the creators of some of these things instead of the spoiler section, but those of you that kind of want to just read and try to see if you can figure out who it is or whatever, it's supposedly some people have found out that way, but most people are gonna go on and research online and stuff. So if that's something you want to do, I'll leave that up to the listeners. If you're not kind of into super spoilers about like who's writing that or whatever, it's not like a key piece of knowledge, but it's just kind of a cool thing. So
yeah, anything else for the Ars Arcanum?
Electrum and malatium. So those are just the alloys of gold and atium, right?
The
correct.
Yeah. So like we don't see electrum
isn't
in
that
this
what
book.
it says in there? Or?
We
Sorry,
do
go
not
ahead.
see electrum in this book at all. Is it?
Which is weird.
Is it in the Ars Arcanum?
Yep.
I would know because that's like my favorite. Like it's one of my favorite metals. I'm always kind of
Electrum is just randomly put into this, even though it's not even in the book. But malatium was the 11th metal.
But I guess what I'm saying is that like, I think the only justifiable reason is they're in this Ars Arcanum is because they must have figured that there was an alloy for these other metals.
Is it in your? It's not in my Ars. Oh wait, hold on. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong.
Mine.
I'm looking at Final Empire Ars Arcanum. Sorry, I need the right
It-
book.
It is in. I just checked my copy, which is the mass market paperback copy, and it is in this one.
I'm checking my.
It's
version.
in mine, but Electrum says unknown. It has the symbol for Electrum, and it says what the power does, but it says unknown. So that's pretty cool to me.
Mine has Electrum, see into your own future, and ferrochemical power unknown.
Yeah.
And it's written with a question mark. Like somebody's like, I guess this is what that would do based on what the other one does.
Interesting. That's
I also
really
find the chart
interesting.
is very interesting. Like the way, like you can see, there's like it's set up, and like so just for like people that don't have it necessarily in front of them, like that's the chart that we have. It's just like a very
It's going to be very confusing for audio only
I
listeners.
just trying to listeners are be like, what is he talking about? Anyway, it looks like a pie that's missing about a dad-sized piece out of it. Quarter of the pie is missing. So
a dad-sized piece.
I did notice that like all of the metals are kind of grouped with their.
Pie.
You guys want some Alamancy pie?
Yeah. Yeah, what's
they
weird
are grouped
is
with their alloys.
They don't have aluminum or duralumin, but they have electrum.
Well,
yeah, that is weird because duralumin was like a big part of this book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is interesting that they don't mention. I don't know.
That's really weird.
That is weird.
Kind of messed up.
I hadn't ever noticed that.
It doesn't have it on the chart, but it has it under names and terms. So if you go into names and terms on inside the book afterwards, it talks about Alendi, Alamancy, elementic metals, Arian, and then it has aluminum. Metal Vin was forced to burn in the Lord Ruler's palace, once known only to the Steel Inquisitors. This metal, when burned, depletes all of an element's other metal reserves. Its alloy, if it has one, is unknown.
And then there's no duralumin. There's no duralumin. What is this mess? Whoever's writing this did not know how to group things.
That's because anyone who referenced the Ars Arcanum during their read would have a big honking spoiler right in front of their face.
Well, we got duralumin fairly early, but
they got we don't even Electrum,
which isn't even in the book.
So, as we started this conversation, that it's somebody in world, is the easy explanation that the only person who knew about that was like Vin, and this person
Vin's
just
still
never
the only
found
one
out.
who knows about duralumin and aluminum because she hasn't told anyone, right?
Yeah.
I don't even remember if she tells Elend.
It
It's
literally
like, oh
says
hey, this well, she mentions like, oh, duralumin, it's a
No.
thing, it's a metal. I think.
Or
I
sure
don't
knows
think
about
she
it.
ever mentions it to. Yeah, she does mention it to Elend, but I don't know if she ever mentions to him what it does.
Not here.
in the aluminum thing. It at the bottom it says its alloy, if it has one, is unknown. So I think it's meant to be kind of spoiler free. Maybe
Yeah.
if you're just jumping to the end, but I'm gonna blame it on the person who wrote it, not Brandon, the in-universe person who wrote it.
Right. I mean,
That's
because
why
again,
does it have
like,
electrum?
so I guess they knew about, like, they found out about aluminum and that it wiped Vin's,
Which who knows how that happened?
right. So who knows how they found out about that? But Vin never revealed duralumin. I mean, because again, only Ham and she told Ham and Elend, like, hey, there's this thing I've got. Like, I'm trying to find the alloy of. So, because Ham needs to know, because he's like gonna carry her back to the bed, right? If she passes out or gets super sick or something, and Elend knows because she's like, yeah, I'm gonna try to find, I'm gonna try it through all whatever, like it's 40 some combinations or whatever it was, something ridiculous.
There's that character who's mentioned once in this book who's like actually
metallurgist.
concocting the vials for her.
Do you remember the metal? Now I want to look up the metallurgist's name.
Oh, jeez. Okay,
It's the
well,
ultimate,
you do
It
that.
doesn't
pop
matter
quiz.
that much. We can keep on carrying on. I'll blurt it out randomly. You don't have to wait for me or anything.
Okay.
But.
So while he's checking that, that's the end of the book. So why don't we give our rankings, and I guess the rankings can kind of delve into overall thoughts and opinions. So the three options we currently have comparing to the Final Empire, is it above it, is it below it, or is it equal to it?
Below.
Below.
Final Empire was better, sorry. Or not sorry.
I tend to agree.
Yeah, I would agree as well, just because it's a lot. This book, it's a lot of questions about what's going on, and it doesn't really feel like as you're reading it, it doesn't feel like there is a end point necessarily that you're trying to reach. Like in Final Empire, it's like, oh, your goal is to try to overthrow the Lord Ruler. Like in this, at the beginning, you don't really have that end point. It feels more like a game of whack-a-mole that the characters are playing. Like, as issues come up, they're dealing with them and they're trying to fix it as things come up, but they're not really working towards an overarching goal necessarily. At least that's what I feel like.
I feel like I can back you up a little bit on that. I've actually been listening through Brandon's classes on how to write books, and one of his things is making sure you make a promise at the beginning and that for what the story is going to be, and making sure you fulfill that by the end. And it doesn't. I can't say it is as clear as some of his other books. Now I know there's many people that find Well of Ascension what his best of the Mistborn trilogy. I think there's many amazing moments in here, but it's also much more political, and I know a lot of people don't like Brandon's. I've noticed there's a large trend that people don't like Brandon's political books as much as they like his other stuff, because he writes action so well and he makes it so engaging that his political stuff just doesn't grab as many people's attention, because it's just it's the action is a different kind than what people are used to expecting from him. Though there are many people that have written best-selling, political action type of books, but it's just not something people expect as much from Brandon. At least that's from what I can tell. I've watched a lot of people like say what they like about Well of Ascension, and those same people usually seem to trend towards some of Brandon's other more political books as their favorites. I don't know. It's a running theory of mine.
I guess via peer pressure, I have to say below now. I was gonna say I would put it equal to.
No,
Oh,
go ahead. Put it equal to.
Yeah, put it equal
Yeah,
to.
it's
Don't
equal.
make
Yeah, don't
peer
censor
pressure.
yourself.
So reader, what to you really? What was the like thing that like really grabbed you about the book?
I think it was rereading it, kind of. I guess on a first read, I would put it below, but rereading it with you guys and noticing all the tiny little details. Like, we brought it up in the actual episodes, but Zane's story arc with Vin, people often just see it as, oh, it's just the love triangle cliche. But it's actually not, and it's more so Elend always loves Vin. That's no thing. Vin's questioning herself, and Zane has this fascination with Vin. It's not at all like Twilight, I guess is the best thing.
Yeah.
But you've also got, once that's over, yes, there's a lot of here's the next problem, here's whack-a-mole, but it's always escalating, and it's always kind of, in like the first one, we've got, oh, here's an army, and then yeah, we finished the army, but at the end of the book, and then we've built up throughout it also this, here's the thing with the well. And yeah, there's been whack-a-mole, but it's kind of in a consecutive line.
And it could be that the promise just doesn't come till later in his book, type of situation, and so people don't catch that. But I like that, and I do think first time through, I was in high school when I read it the first time through. I struggled a lot more, but I enjoy it on rereads, and I don't ever have any issues with any of Brandon's books on rereads. So I can agree with that. I like that.
I personally
Reader.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I think on a first read, I would put it below. Just going off of memory and what I had thought back then. But I think on a second read through, if you notice what Brandon is trying to say, like even with Breeze and Orianne, like first glance, that's just like, for whatever reason, you've got this 18-year-old girl with this 30-something-year-old guy. But you see Breeze questioning it throughout the entire thing, and Orianne is the one kind of pushing it. And I feel like
And
if
that's
you
why
stop,
she likes him.
yeah. And if you stop and like notice all these details that Brandon puts into this book, I think it works a lot better than the Final Empire. Definitely had a better overarching story, but this one definitely worked better in the tiny details.
I think the Final Empire is my favorite Cosmere book. Yeah. Having read all of them and then coming back to this one, like, you just can't touch that book, in my opinion. Like, the fact we talked about it, at length, obviously, but I think my favorite part about it, besides having like the promise and the payoff and the more contained story, which I think is what is making it a better book for me, is that, like, you could read the Final Empire and probably stop there and be like, that was awesome. But this book, like, you have to read Hero of Ages for any of this to make sense or be relevant, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
But
Swiggity, was Final Empire your first Sanderson book that you read?
no, it was Way of Kings.
Final Empire was mine.
They're kind of tied. Like, Way of Kings and Final Empire are kind of tied for me right now. I'm just to have a super soft spot for Kelsier too, so kind of having him, like his book, like, it'll always be special to me.
But I'm gonna cut in real quick. That's one of the things I really liked about this book, is that you have the sensei character die in book one, in which one of the things I gave Brandon a lot of props for in it is that you couldn't tell if he was a sensei character or just one of their main characters, because it always flip-flopped between viewpoints between him and Vin, and he could have been the main character, and you didn't need to kill him. But in this one, usually in book 2s, things stay relatively stagnant. Yes, they set up book 3, and this one definitely basically does that, but also nothing really happens. And then in book 3, you kill off another character. This one, we see clubs, and
You can't even remember his name. How sad is that?
Dachshund.
Dachshund.
I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to say the wrong one. We see clubs and Dachshund die. Just brutally. And it affects Breeze in a way that we will see in the Hero of Ages.
Mhm.
And I feel like I've never really read a book 2 of a trilogy that actually does something to make book 2s memorable, outside of just setting up book 3.
That's fair. I get that.
So now that I have pleaded my case, anybody want to change their vote?
No.
No, but I want to say
No.
the action in this one is a million times better. Like the action sequences in this book make me smile. Like I love them. And
Let's
if you are a fan of the action in Sanderson, like Dragon was saying, I think this could be way above Final Empire.
Yeah. Well, apparently I've been outvoted, so in the
Well, it's
Cosmere
never a
Connections...
vote.
I mean, it's not really a voting
An
session. We're
individual
just kind of
opinion.
we're just
In the
throwing out
Cosmere
our opinions
Connections
here.
ranking system, you can have a side one readers version.
But if you
in
all,
the
but if we
Cosmere
want to vote,
Connections-
who votes Reader off the island? I'm just kidding.
Read it too.
You guys
Goodbye.
didn't
Just
even
you and me, Reader.
hesitate. Oh, okay. I
You
guess I'll
brought that on
find somebody
yourself.
else to do the opening. Okay, but in the Cosmere Connections page, I guess we'll have this one equal to, this one lesser than the Final Empire.
Do we have a ranking?
Well, this is
I'm
our
assuming
first
it's going to be
rank.
under it because book 1, and we did all the stuff first, and then we did book 2. It's going to be under it, but I don't know.
This is the only one we've really ranked to so far.
I mean,
We only
we'll
have
expand
to.
upon this in the spoiler section.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
literally only 2 books so far, so like, is it really a ranking system right now with only
Yeah.
2 books?
I do
Well,
think
I
it'd be
was gonna
fun.
Put the be cool.
Like we'll only get to do this like once every 3 months, like 3 or 4 months, realistically, right? I think it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Well, then let's move into kind of overall story thoughts, like
Did
character
you hear
arcs.
John's kind of ending on the ranking, or no? Sure.
I stated it. I didn't justify it. I kind of started to, but my justification is not terribly erudite, so I just like this one less, despite the fact that it has Kolos, and we get that promise from the first book fulfilled. It's just, to me, it was less entertaining. And as we move into the next book, I guess I'll share with you that the next book is actually my least favorite Cosmere book. But don't let that discourage you, because I still love all of these books.
How do I
still
kick him?
love them. But it is the
Don't
least
listen to
of
him.
all of them.
Don't
This is
listen
where
to
we
him.
vote someone off the island.
This is where we vote him off the island.
Awesome. I love that
John
we
will
have
not be
such
joining
diverse
us
opinions
for the
about
next
this.
season of Cosmere Connections. No,
We'll
but
have
it'll
one
be
less
good to have
member.
that viewpoint. It'll be good to have that viewpoint.
Yeah, no, it's great. Honestly, I've listened to some of the other Cosmere. I started listening to the 17th Shard for people that are listening that know about that like spoilers. They go, 17th Shard is basically full spoiler podcast, but that's one of the things that they do is they actually specifically invite people on to have controversial opinions to make the conversations a little more interesting. So we'll keep John
It'll
around
also be
just for the
interesting-
views.
It'll also be interesting for me to see if that opinion changes as we go through that book, because this is the first time I've gone through the original Mistborn trilogy in a few years now. So it's also possible that opinion will change.
Okay.
I reserve
I
that.
hope we are. I hope we're
There's
able
always
to.
hope for redemption.
I do
Yeah.
love the strong opinions. It like we're all obviously Sanderson fans, but if anybody like hates something, it is kind of interesting. Like I would love to hear why or how you feel about it, even if you think it's controversial.
I hated him.
Better
Okay,
to
well
eat your horse.
let's move into like specific thoughts and opinions. Like, I brought it up briefly, but Zane's arc is really misunderstood for a lot of people when reading this book, and I think rereading it really shows how well it shines. I love. Okay, I don't really love it, but story arc and learning that she needs to kind of accept herself as who she is and what she is, and know that she is enough is a really good message, even though it hurts to watch her go through it. You've got Elend, who's struggling the entire book with being able to hold this weight he has now been forced to carry. And my brother hates the fact that Elend became king at the end of the Final Empire, but he likes what happens now with him being Mistborn. But I feel like that's part of the story, is that you see Elend always like questioning himself, and then you've got Tindwyl showing up, and then he gains the confidence, and then he loses his kingship, and then he kind of that's when he truly becomes kind of kingly. And it's when he's taking this power and he knows he's the best one to do it. And even when he doesn't have the crown, he's doing what he can to protect Luthadel. And throughout all of that, he's always been like, "Oh, I'll give anything for an romantic power, even one of the weaker ones." And now we have him as a Mistborn. And it's going to be so much fun to see how that affects everything. Any
Yeah, that's
comments
super
on?
interesting. Like I don't know it. I always kind of liked that he didn't have a power. Like his thing was that he's just a super good person who cares about the ska, and like I don't think he needed it. I think it's cool, but I don't think it was like super necessary, you know. And it almost detracts from from my liking of him because he was so strong in his beliefs and in his passion, you know, and it wasn't like a physical strength.
His
I
power
think
was
it.
always his mind, right? Like he was took the lessons that he found and it really made them part of himself, right? That was his power. You know, his superpower was understanding what a good political system should look like, or at least a better one. Understanding that ska are people, and that's how, like, you shouldn't treat other people like property. You know, the willingness to step up and make a change, to fight against the tyrant, even if it was just in silly petty ways at first. That was always his superpower. And so now when he gets actual literal superpowers, it kind of feels like it washes that away just a smidge.
I I understand that, but I want to bring up two things. One is we saw Elend kind of go through a he got strong thing. We saw him take on the baby Koloss in about halfway through the book with when he goes to Yastis's camp. And we kind of see through that he can be physically powerful. Not just his mind is his strength, but he can also take this. And this will only do. I have some agreement that yes, it's more fun to see these characters. Like that's part of the reason I love Batman, is because he doesn't have powers. But also, I think it kind of plays into the threat of the overarching story. The two characters that don't have powers, Doxson and Elend, are not who they were when we started. Doxson died and Elend gained power. And I think that kind of speaks to the threat that is what is to come, in which the normal people cannot survive this. That you either need to become powerful to be able to fight this great evil, or you will die. And that if you don't do something, you won't make it.
I like the idea of him being like a better version of like kind of changing the subject slightly. I like the idea of him being like a better version of Kelsier, and like getting like Kelsier's powers at the end is kind of cool. It's like now he has the power both in like the political aspect and the allomancy aspect to do right and to do what Kelsier couldn't do.
My problem is that he went from being Batman, who is this awesome, cool, intelligent, uses his mind to solve the problem and does what's right, to being Superman, who is always as strong as he needs to be, and you never have to ever worry about him ever losing again because he's got all the power.
See, I don't think it's like bringing him from Superman to that. I would say it's more so like if Batman got a Green Lantern ring. Like he's been told of this power the entire thing, and he doesn't know how to really use it yet, but he knows what it could do.
Same, but different, but still same.
That's why those moments when in like Injustice, when Superman gets the yellow, or in DC when Darkseid. Why am I just bringing up the yellow ring? When he gets a yellow ring, or in any moment when somebody gets a Green Lantern ring, it's always so awesome and fascinating to watch these characters just get this new power that we have seen, but they get to use it in their own way.
Yeah, but Superman is boring. And
okay.
I'm gonna have to go in on Reader's side on this. I enjoyed the fact that Elend became Mistborn, because it's just like everyone, I don't know, being like having the aspect of like Mistborn is just like there's something so exciting about like that and the magic, and then like seeing a character that people have come to love kind of get that next piece. But you know, and you can wonder like, oh, how is it going to change him, and is it going to change who he is at this core? Now that he has power, or is he, or not? But I don't know. Like I said, fair opinion for everyone to have their own. But I mean,
I absolutely did a little
enjoyable.
when I read it the first time.
Like,
I was super excited about it, and it pays dividends. It does. It's still cool. I was just reinforcing the idea of it's a character arc that I don't think Elend needed. You know, it changes his character's tone in a way that I can see why a person might say it detracts from him a little bit.
I can see why. I just disagree with that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Same here, because and that's the thing is, I think there's always going to be, if for people that are like avid readers, there's always going to be books with it, or even like movie watchers or TV shows. Like it always gets to a point where it's like people have to change. If people aren't changing from book to book, especially when they're like a viewpoint character, they're not this kind of like magical kind of like we like them because they're not changing kind of situation. Then if we don't have that, then you know, then it doesn't feel right that there's not some sort of progression. So he has to go somewhere. So it's just not everyone's going to agree with where the author has that person's story go. And you know what? That's you know, something that Brendan's always said is like he writes his stories and they're for him, and he will continue to write them no matter what, even if he becomes dirt poor. And you know, if something happened and all of his books fell out of favor, he'd keep on writing his stories because they're for him. But he does tiny tweaks to help people try to enjoy his books more. But his books are for him, and that's, you know, kind of how it is. And so yeah, you know, but he tries to make sure that there's something for everyone, but not everyone's going to like everything.
There is one aspect
going to be one of those aspects
of Elend becoming Mistborn that I do think is cool, and I do think fits the arc of this plot like really, really well. Is that like a lot of the love triangle? I'm using air quotes here for audio listeners. is like Vin thinking or being worried about or being convinced by Zane that Elend will never understand her because he's not Mistborn, you know. And so when this happens, it's kind of like the resolution of that. It's like, I guess you could say it's a promise and a payoff a little bit of like, now she gets to show him her world. She gets to teach him all the things, you know?
I want to see them going to the wall and just like, okay, I'm gonna shove you off now.
Yes.
Wait, what?
This is what my mentor did for me.
We're gonna take this steel line all the way to the city and then back. Why?
Okay,
I
so
don't know.
She
now I'm
shows
gonna
him the
come back and play.
stars.
Now I'm gonna come back and play devil's advocate here on the
Oh,
opposite
no.
side, simply because the way you said that, Swiggity, just makes me think. At the same time, in a relationship, not everything's going to be set up so perfectly that you'll be given the magical miracle of a chance to understand what someone else is going through.
But sometimes you do.
And so sometimes you do, and that can happen. But generally, you will never have the same life experiences and like capabilities. Someone will be incredible at math, and someone else will be incredible at, interpersonal communications or whatever. And those things will never cross the same. And hopefully, we will see kind of like a diversity in how they approach their powers, how their powers work, maybe, or we'll see some sort of diversity. So it's like they are similar but seem different now that they're both Mistborn. We don't exactly know it because Kelsier and Vin were pretty like toe to toe for the most part.
But we also saw that Kelsier was more focused on steel and iron, while Vin
Right.
was always more of in the darkness, kind of a ninja type. Kate, do you
Right.
have anything?
But that's kind of changed with you needing to battle the.
I like
the
that dragon.
Colossus, I should say. So
I think it would be probably stronger if they found a way to work together, and if she found a way to accept him not being able to understand her value system.
which she does, right? The whole point is she gets this acceptance, like they have this immense unity without having to know it. So it doesn't take away if that happened before they had found that unity. I think it would have destroyed so much of their relationship. So I enjoy the way it's set up. Again, just kind of like throwing that devil's advocate some people could see is kind of like, oh, it almost makes like that learning moment of each other to accept no matter what less important. But the point is, it still happened before he got powers, and so they now know whatever happens next that makes them more different or more offset. They still have that we can work through this together, whether or not we have powers, whether or not we match. So they already have had that skill to move on to the next book with. Anyway, I will now let Kay speak.
I do have one
Okay.
more thing to say about this before we move on to. It's that Vin really is the Lord Ruler because the Lord Ruler gave allomancy to his friends at the end after he took up the power, and that's what she technically does. It's just like a rhyming event.
I love it.
Good connection.
Good connection. Is there anything somebody wants to bring up about the overall book? I brought up the three main characters kind of in this without Sazed. Poor Sazed and what happens to him, and poor Tindwyl. But does anybody want to bring up a certain character's arc, a certain section that just wants to bring attention to before we move on into the spoiled section? Wow, I was expecting that.
I was gonna say maybe we should go around the horn or something because I don't want to jump out in front of anyone.
Okay, Swiggity, do you have anything?
I liked the fighting. I really like Zane and Vin taking out all of Set's men in 10 or 12 minutes. That was badass. One of my favorite scenes of any book.
I feel like there definitely was an upscale on action. Because in the first one, you had basically Vin versus another Allomancer, an Inquisitor, and the Lord Ruler. And they all relatively had the same power set. Sorry, Kay.
I would say you definitely had more Vin versus groups of people in this book versus the last book. You see more group fight versus one-on-one fights, which I feel like in the last book you saw a lot more one-on-one fights.
I'm just saying this one seemed to have more variety of fighting.
Well, there had to be because Vin killed off all the Mistborn.
That's true.
Except fighting with Zane, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, in which we still had that. We still had that, and it was nice to see Vin defeat him in a way nobody has really done before, and especially when they're burning atium.
Yeah, it was cool. It was wild. And, like reading through that and just picturing it, like I would love to see it in a movie. It's probably my favorite part of this book.
Dragon, anything specific you would like to bring up?
Let me ruminate on that for a minute more. I've been trying to think of something that I want to. I don't know. I just something that I guess I can say I haven't already like harped on before, which is just like I enjoy the insanity of Zane.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was fun. I know again, like a lot of people hate him for the weird triangle, dealio that people think, but I really enjoyed him as a character. So
Zane was a fascinating character, and I think, yeah, he does fall into that, oh, he's just a love triangle aspect, but I feel like he definitely brings something new that, compared to the other, he's trying to be Kelsier so much so that he's put scars on his body, and he's trying to get Vin to come with him. He's a fascinating character. He's a creep, but he's a fascinating character if you look at him and look
He's
at
a
all that
weirdo.
he's doing and why and what. John, anything? I'm guessing you're going to break Kolos.
I've already done that.
I knew Dragon was going to bring up Zane. I'm figuring you're going to bring up the Kolos.
And I love my Kolos. I think they're one of the coolest things in the original series. I don't know. I don't really have anything that I would want to call back to. I feel like we've done a pretty good job covering the bits and pieces as they've come up. I will say that this book, one thing that this book suffers from, and the reason that I choose to rate it lower is because it does have that kind of long dragging conflict versus a more straightforward conflict. That's just not, my style. And that's also why I feel like the next book is my least favorite, because it's got that end of the world, long, dragging, slowly crumbling thing going on. But we'll talk more about that when the time comes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my 2 bits.
Okay, what are your 2 boxings?
I would just say, like, y'all know I like Elend. I really like his story arc within this book, because I feel like this has been really him coming into himself and his character within this book. We've seen him grow, I feel like, a lot, and I would argue the most out of all of the characters. I know that Vin grows a lot as well in this book. But I feel like Elend is one of the ones who grows the most in this book, and it's really, there is a big part on about him and his growth in this book that I really like.
So just like Ellen's arc, basically his whole progression through this book.
Mm-hmm.
And just because I feel like we should touch on it a little bit, I would like to. You said that Ellen has the biggest growth. I agree 100%. But I feel like Sazed has like the biggest decline. In which we even see in the very first chapter he's in this book, he's trying to teach some village people things that they just need to survive, when all he wants to be doing is spreading religions. And nobody really wants that.
I would argue against that. First Sazed, but I can't really say why right now because that would be spoilers.
I agree with Kay.
But he does end this book saying like he doesn't believe anymore.
Right, and I wouldn't say, and you can, I think I know where you're coming from, reader, when you say decline, right? Because it's like he has like this I believe in all religions, I teach all religions, I love all religions kind of
Yes.
aspect, and now he has this like loss of faith. And so it's like visually when you say, here's a flat line of I don't care, I don't give a darn about religions, and he's like, I love all religions, and now he's like, I don't think anything is true, and they're all just terrible. Like, it doesn't give me any hope because no one can answer, like, kind of a situation. But that in itself is like, it's character growth, right? It's like he is growing in like as things happen to him, like his like someone is changing. Growth is simply like changing along a projection, and whether it's growth as in they're getting better, someone could be growing and getting worse, or in some people might say it's growth because there isn't actually any gods out there, and so now he's growing into understanding that there is nothing out there, and he's not coming to that realization. So it is a character progression, and his mind is going through a struggle, and every struggle helps someone grow. I think it's a great setup because it always makes me so excited for the next book to see what happened to Sazed, because everyone loves Sazed. I don't know if everyone loves Sazed, but
Everybody
I know
loves Sazed.
everyone here visually loves Sazed, and we all want to see and know what happens to him in the next book. And to me, I think it's just like it's more about semantics. So I think I agree with you in the drop, but I also disagree with you simply because growth is development and movement, and if you don't have trials, you cannot grow. And so we're going to see what
I'm in
his growth
agreement
is
that
in the
there's
next book.
kind of growth, but it's like Elend has a vertical growth, Sazed has a downward one, in which you see Sazed have like this question of his faith at the beginning, and then he finds the first real hint of the terrorist religion, and it gets him super excited. He races to Luthadel, and he meets Tindwyl, the person he's always respected from his time even before the crew, and the person who can probably share his pain at the least. And even though they argue a lot, she's still doing what he always wanted, which she's helping in her own way. And he finds this fascination in her that we've never really seen him with before in anybody. And they together find their religion, the terrorist religion, in which even then we find out that was a falsehood. And then there's some errors in it, in which that's always making him question. And then you have Tindwyl dies, and that just breaks Sazed. And then the only thing at that point that's keeping them together is the fact, oh, wait a second, Vin is the hero. She's going to fix the world, and I'm going to help with that. And we have completed the prophecy. And then you find out that entire thing was a lie. And Sazed's last hope has destroyed the world. And every single part of Sazed has just like crumbled now. And don't want to say what happens in it, but I'm very excited for what happens in the Hero of Ages.
Sword must be broken before it can be reforged.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else in the section?
I'm dying to
Someone
get
else
into
losing Reader,
spoilers.
or is
Yeah.
that just me?
Am I being lost?
I don't know. Reader's screen is frozen and his voice is cutting in and out for me. I'm not sure if it's my internet or someone else's. Everyone else is moving.
Seems alright
Reader's
for
just
me.
like on my screen.
Okay, well, as long as Swiggity's got a good version, that's what's fine. Well, thank you very much for sticking around so far into this episode. We're going to go into the spoiler section next. We highly recommend that if you have not read this book, the entire series, or potentially the entire Cosmere, you stop here because very likely we will talk about everything and anything, especially considering that we're covering the entire book. However, if you are up to date on the story, feel free to stick around. It's likely we'll bring up details you may have forgotten or plot threads that are still yet to come. Please be sure to subscribe, leave a like, star, heart, whatever it is on this video or audio, and don't be afraid to comment your own thoughts and predictions. We would love to hear from you. But at this where we leave you. And my name is Reader, and I have been joined by Swiggity Swoo.
Thanks for coming with us to the Well of Ascension.
DragonKeiran.
They insane, Zane.
John,
Come down.
there it is.
Have a go on.
And this has been Cosmere Connections. And we're back. Okay, so we're gonna go back to the epigraph real quick, just to cover a few notes that I know I had. The epigraph, and then we can maybe, I don't think we need to go over rankings again, but we talk about how this book builds up to Well of Ascension. So
Hero
And now we'll
pages.
say just because Kay was talking about Vin and Elend at the end. Okay, now we got that out of the way. Continue, reader.
So where did Marsh and all the Inquisitors go during this time period?
What do you mean?
As-
They went up to Terrace and killed everyone.
They went up to Terrace, in which the Terrace people escaped. Marsh came down to Luthadel. Where did Marsh go from this? Because there's also a WOB that the place where the Hero of Ages starts, where Marsh is pounding a spike through some guy. That's also supposedly the Temple of Saran.
Real quick, Marsh Came Down to Luthadel is a great song.
And Marsh came down to Luthadel. He was looking for a soul to spike.
Nailed it.
Literally.
So
Well-
they're off. They're currently off chasing still all of the. From my understanding, they're off. They go and they like marshal things together. He says like for this last 2 years he's been off killing. So not only does he help with this, he probably goes and helps with. I don't know if actually no, he didn't. He wasn't up in Terrace because people were talking about him for weeks beforehand. Seeing multiple times, seeing an Inquisitor stalking through Predict Shaw. So Marsh wasn't up there, but all the other Inquisitors were marshaling up their army and going up to Terrace, and then they go off and they're chasing down all the Wandering Terrace. So they have to then go and find all the Wandering Terrace and go kill them, or go get them, capture them, put them somewhere, bring them back to the Conventicle of Saren. So it just so happens that they're off still, parading around their bodies and probably hunting them down before they can come back and start spiking them some more.
Okay.
That's my theory, I should say.
I could get behind that. And kind of a philosophical question. Does Sazed ever really believe again?
In 3, don't you?
Yes.
Do you not remember? Do you not remember the ending of 3?
But he doesn't really believe again.
Yes, he does.
But he does. He specifically says, he realizes that belief is a choice, and he chooses to believe, and he chooses to believe in that Vin will come, and that Vin will save everyone.
Okay, I
it
didn't
very
remember that
specifically
part.
goes through that at the end. So
Okay.
maybe it's just because
It's been a
I
while.
was a religious studies major in college, so I'm very like I think about these things a lot, and I watch for religious patterns and curiosities and stuff. But
But it was more so like, what does, as Sazed is now God, what does he believe?
what does he believe after that?
Yeah.
You're talking about after he's ascended?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
He still
He
doesn't
doesn't
have all the
believe in
answers.
himself.
There's still like some mysticism. Like he can, he has the powers and all that, but I feel like this, if anything, would be the ultimate proof, if anything, right? That there is, something greater. He must have some idea of the spiritual realm, and
So he does talk about certain things through other like things inside of the Stormlight Archives conversations because he talks about like oh no, and he also the epigraphs for the chapters in the Hero of Ages because he's talks about like he searched his knowledge bases and all he can come up with is this name Adonalcium, and he sees that the predictions of him being the Hero of Ages being more accurate than anyone else, right? Being a neutered subject, right? Of the neutral noun. They use it like it's technically called the neutered noun. The neuter noun is him, and he's neutered, right? So it's like, so he, in a sense, he sees that there was truth inside of this. He like believes it. He sees that there's truth. He is the Hero of Ages. He takes it and he ascends. So in this sense, I would see that in a sense carrying with him is that somewhere, sometime, someone made some realistic, actual predictions, and it ended up being him. And he understands that he is the Hero of Ages, so he has some sort of belief in that. Not only belief, but now knowledge, because next step after belief is knowledge and knowing for a fact. So he has that. And then he also talks about in some of the other letters, talking about, you know, feeling there's something beyond. There's some sort of like presence, like beyond even what him and his powers have. So I kind of feel like he still has this aspect of he has this knowledge about like something new and was right about the Hero of Ages, and now I'm this being, but I'm only a splinter. He realizes he's only a shard of whatever of Adonalcium and the being that came before him, and that there's something else in the beyond that's even he doesn't know about. And so it's still a mystery that carries and needs belief even for a god.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think he does, in some sense, believe in the god of the beyond, which is something that Dalinar also references his belief in the god of the beyond as like something that's like greater in a sense than the shards. And I think Sazed also believes in that as well.
Okay.
It's a good question, though.
Thanks. And then now I could. Sorry.
I was gonna say, can I ask my question about paint now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so since Dragon wasn't here earlier, question. So metal signs. This is a two-part question. So metal signs that have paint on them, would that paint be able to be manipulated by Ruin? Because it's on metal. Side note, also, if that paint had metal mixed into it, would Ruin be able to manipulate it?
So, a few thoughts here. Would Ruin be able to manipulate paint on a sign?
It's made of metal.
I would argue
the
it's
sign
made of
is
metal.
Made of metal. So
So let's go to what is the crux of why he can't manipulate metal? Because they talk about metal is the same. Custer says metal is the same stuff as souls, right? This world was created by two shards, so all of the creation was them, and metal is of the same substance as souls, and so he can't. So the point is he can't manipulate souls, right? He cannot manipulate a certain fraction of spiritual energy. So he also can't read it because he can't see it. It's just bright shining light. So if he could manipulate the paint,
I would think
there's
he
a
could
potential,
manipulate
but
the paint on it.
what he couldn't see what's happening there. He just kind of it's like too bright, and he can maybe like push things around. But I think that would be something that's like
I think the brightness was meant to be a visual thing. I don't think it's literally brightening. I just think since the paint would be on the metal, the paint would be able to change. But if paint had metal in it, because the sign is made out of metal, right? And the sign knows that it's a sign. Well, the paint knows it is paint due to this cognitive realm.
But what if it's been so long that it's not seeing itself as independent things of paint versus sign, and it's just one metal object?
Is he manipulating the actual, like, is he changing it in the same sense that that they have to get the writing to see itself as something different, or the writing is still writing and he just changes the physical but not the cognitive aspect. I don't think he's changing the cognitive aspect of the writing. He's not convincing it to change.
No, but he still has to mess with the cognitive what it is. Like that's part of why
It's still
he can't
writing. It
affect
still
the
sees
metal.
itself as writing. It doesn't say,
But the metal is the cognitive part that he can't affect.
the metal is, but the paint isn't. And everything
but-
has an amount of metal in it, so it depends. So on your second question, it's how much metal is in it, right? Everything has metal in it. But he can change sand, he can change ash, he can move it around, right? He physically moves the ash, right? Writing in someone's blood after they die. He can move the physical pieces of blood around, right? And we see that in Hero of Ages when Panrod dies, right? He can change like the physical, like, and he can change some in some aspects. Here's the other thing: he can change memories inside of a metal mind, which is metal. But he's not
John,
changing
what
the
were you
metal;
trying to
he's
say?
changing the metal mind.
So there's two other little bits of pieces that can tangentially be added to this, and that is one of the primary components in ink is actually iron ore. So the ink that we see being manipulated that Sazed is using is likely primarily composed of a particular type of iron ore, which means it has a very high iron content and is essentially metal. So for the paint to not be affectable as a metal, it would have to be extraordinarily high metal content, to the point where it might not even be usable as paint.
Right,
The other
because-
thing is it the physical words that he's destroying or changing, or is he destroying runing information?
I hate to say this, but original ink, like in old fashioned, was just mud and water and dirt and oak. Like I don't think
Yeah, there were
iron
some
was a
varieties
big
of
thing.
ink that were made from particular types of bird nests that depended on the color a lot. But what I'm talking about in particular is a type of ink that was often used in monasteries and used for old, those big old manuscripts that you would see written in Old English.
Ah.
So that's
Okay.
why I bring that up. I forget exactly what the documentary was, but it was about old religious texts.
I would think that somebody could change. So if you just had a hexagonal metal sign, spray painted it red, and then wrote with like a pen stop, I think Ruin could change that to read go. I think if you carved in the word stop, it would not work. And I think if you mixed in enough metal into the paint, you would not be able to change that. But I think there is a line between if the paint has enough metal in it.
And here's something to think about: whether or not the ink, even if the ink is made with a bunch of metal in it, the primary factor is still water. Because if there's more metal than water, then it's no longer, like, I don't know if if you remember like playing with like metal shavings and stuff. When you pour in some water, it does not paint it make. Like there's an amount of metal, but the percentage is going to be significantly lower than the percentage of water, and that's the same thing with paint. It's first ingredient is always water plus everything else. And so yeah, if you maybe change that up, but at that point you're pouring metal powder, pretty much.
Right.
Damp metal powder.
So yeah, fortunately, it's not up to us to have to worry about those edge cases. There's only one man who can make those decisions.
Right, but I mean, what would be Cosmere, Connections without a couple, guesses?
Should we go back to the table?
Totally random tangents, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Completely hypotheticals.
That's what makes the book so good, in my opinion. Is you
Right,
you can extrapolate. Is his laws are like solid enough that you can make very educated guesses. Anyway,
Right.
sorry. I'll let Reader take us back on track.
Listen,
I was
this was
just-
a fun tangent, though, and I greatly enjoyed the answers that everyone gave because I was like, I honestly don't know. I'm curious to see what people say.
Wait, so everything has metal in it?
Well, everything comes from the Earth, basically.
Like, except for, like, sulfur and nitrogen and hydrogen and carbon and oxygen and phosphorus.
Well, it
Like,
depends.
everything else is, like,
If you
metal
talk to
or
an
metalloid.
astrophysicist, everything except for hydrogen and helium is considered a metal. Which
Because
chemically is not true, but I mean, it's
of the way they
a
form
lesson
bonds?
in definitions.
So it's not like there's steel and everything. It's just a semantic. It's like a categorization of it.
Yes.
All right. I was stuck on that.
It does make me think, though, about semiconductors. Like silicone, and I don't know my periodic table nearly as well as I should.
But those are those are like
semi-metals.
metalloids, so they're like kind of in between, right?
I also want to say that this is why, like Marsh and the other Inquisitors, that they can see out of their eyes, because their eyes see sources of metal. And since everything has at least some level of metal in it, that they can see outlines of things.
Is that why, like, Kelsey talks about, you could push on the individual axis if you were skilled enough?
Yeah, I think
That's
so.
cool.
Can I bring up?
Sorry.
Can I bring up the fact that Elend is a full Mistborn now?
You want to focus back on the book that we just read?
I know. How strange.
Concept.
Who would have thought we
Literally.
came here for a reason? But Elend's
Literally.
now being the most powerful Alamancer in the world. And yes, like that is a bit of okay. Now what can stop him? I guess some Superman syndrome. But Superman stories are usually best when it's not about just facing his powers outright. It's by how they use it and how somebody can outthink them and make him do something different.
Right. He's not
Does that
exactly
mean
one punch man either,
But here's also the thing. He dies in the end. So he's not Superman.
No,
Yeah.
He fights Inquisitors, he nearly dies every time. And in the end, he does die to an Inquisitor.
He dies to Marsh.
Yep, he dies to Marsh. He nearly dies to the Inquisitor in the beginning. If it wasn't for Vin, he would have been dead. With a spike through his heart coming from the back.
And arguably his biggest contribution in Hero of Ages is realizing the 16-16-16 thing.
And he doesn't even realize that.
Well, I mean, he's the one that puts together that they're snapping the people.
Yeah.
He's told about the like, he's not the one that figures out the number 16, but he's kind of told about, like, other people kind of put out the pieces, and then he makes the connection.
But, like, could they have just made it so that he is now a seer? I don't know, this gets a bit confusing considering Brandon's retcon of atium now. But I guess they could have made him a seer, but then it also, you can't really show how he does that. And also that would kind of ruin the reveal of a seer Alamancer specific.
Also, then, because Pewter is what saves him, so that wouldn't really work.
Yeah.
Because Pewter is the reason that Elend is still alive.
Wait, what's the retcon of atium?
So, Sanderson has said that atium, since it's a god metal, should work for anybody who's an Alamancer. So, even a thug or a soother should be able to burn atium. So, Brandon is basically saying now that what we have known as atium is not pure atium, and that when Preservation made the pits, he made it so when AT's power condensed, it also mixed in other things, and what we have known as atium is basically another alloy of it. and that
Couldn't it have just been
possibly
that no one that wasn't a Mistborn ever tried to burn atium because it was just so rare? I don't know. That's my opinion on it.
I
Who in
feel
their
like
right
that
mind
would
would
have
be
been
like,
tested.
I have been told, right? We have all been told how allomancy works, and no one ever questions it. They're gonna go, let me go burn $50 million. Well, that was a waste. I guess I'm gonna go poop it out. Like,
You would think somebody would have tested it, though. I would think somebody would have tested that at some point.
maybe.
But the
Maybe they
retcon
just took that
basically
secret
is
to the grave. But
we're
I
going to
didn't
get a
realize they
different
did that.
atium. And
Also, we know that other people have tried it because we are about to encounter a character who is an atium misting. So
Yep.
it has to have been
True.
tried.
I guess that's true. Okay, there you go.
But basically, we're going to get a different atium in the future.
Well,
And
we technically
apparently,
have a different
atium now
atium.
has like 2 alloys. This,
But
we're
technically,
gonna need-
atium can alloy with any of the like usable metals. So
Yeah,
when
that's
you
what
actually
I'm
talk
gonna
about
say.
there are 16 metals, there are 16 alloys of atium with every single
Yeah.
metal that is a main metal, and that's the same thing with lerasium, and the same thing with every god metal. There's just there's technically if you're gonna look into
we're never going to
alloys,
get a chart for this. We're never going to get a true chart for this.
I no, because then you'd have to do every god metal of all 16 god metals, and an alloy of them with every single other metal, and on the chart, and then every god metal as it combines with other god metals. Yeah, no, we're not going to get a
We're
chart
never
for
gonna
that.
get a full chart of bind points because
There's too many.
Or of all the different type of twinborns.
Yeah.
We do have actually there is a chart out there that has all the different twin.
It's a
I
fan-made
found
chart, though. It's a fan-made.
Correct.
It's not by Brandon, though. But
Correct.
shoot, bring up something. Oh,
How does
I think sorry.
how does the alloys work? Like, so if you have an alloy of lerasium and like a certain metal, is it
It
kind
only
of
gives
like
that
It-
single metal.
It makes you into a misting.
Missing him to a misting of just that particular metal. So technically, if you did that, you could make someone a what Spook was with just that with those though technically, because you could then alloy do lerasium, tin, lerasium, pewter, and give 2 to someone, so you can technically make people like that.
But it's
Also, we have seen
kind
pure
of a
atium, by the way.
it's
Just don't
kind
know
of a waste of the metal in a way because it's like
that. I mean,
why would
technically,
you?
Brandon's
if
even
we just
said
had
that
lerasium?
giving
then yeah.
people and making people Mistborn with lerasium is almost a waste of lerasium. There is so much more to lerasium out there that people just don't know about. It goes so much beyond making someone a Mistborn, but just no one knows.
Because
Hopefully,
there
we'll
hasn't been
learn what.
any.
Hopefully,
I
we'll
imagine
learn what.
there's
Well,
like a bunch of energy stored in it. Like if you could like split a bead of lerasium, it'd be like splitting an atom. Like,
I
Well, I
mean,
mean, it's
that's what
like
I picture.
splitting.
everyone's read
harmonium.
Lost Metal, right? Has
Yep.
anyone not read Lost Metal?
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
good.
that is.
Yeah, I mean, just look at splitting harmonium. You get pure lerasium and you get pure atium,
But
and
My
it was
main
like
thing was-
splitting atoms.
yeah,
So,
like,
Go
I
ahead,
think
Reader.
we should probably cover all the retcons that happen before we cover Era 2 at some point.
I think
But
that'd be good because there's certain retcons I guess that I've missed. I don't know, unless it's like something that I've stumbled upon. Or like this brought up in some fashion. I haven't.
well, we don't need to cover really that one. But like, which metals are actually part of the 16? That kind of gets retconned.
Really?
It won't be a long thing, because in
Well,
the
I
original
mean-
one, we've now got atium, malatium, that in Sazed
yeah.
there are 2 others, but turns out there's 4 others because the whole temporal metal section was completely ruined.
Right. Yeah. Well, because
Okay, so is there anything you would like to change about your ranking systems based on just how this feels comparison to Hero of Ages?
No.
No?
You Hero of Ages or Mistborn?
Yeah. Like, so far we've compared it to how well it's done to previous books, which is literally just the Final Empire. Now comparing it to what happens down the line, how well is this book?
So, would you put this book equal to Final Empire, behind Final Empire? How would you put it compared to Hero of Ages?
Or its
Well, there's certainly
ramifications?
like, so this book is such a downer, you know, at the end of it, like we were talking about, Sazed goes from believing to not believing, and Elend getting overpowered, right? And then he eventually dies. It's like, yeah, I feel like a lot of, you know, things have been unsettled in this book, and like without Hero of Ages, this is a downer and really sad. Like if you stopped here, that would not be cool.
Like Empire.
So, yeah, it's Infinity War. It's apparently across the Spider-Verse. It's like that middle chapter.
Spoiler!
Spoiler! Shut up!
Haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it either. I haven't seen it either. I don't know what
I
happens.
mean, it's the
so-
second in a series, so you can literally say it's the
That's what
second of, and then make a comparison to literally anything.
Empire Strikes Back. Do Empire Strikes Back.
That's the classic one, yep.
Two towers, but not like Chamber of Secrets. You know, you read Chamber of
Well, that's
Secrets,
not a
you're like, yeah,
trilogy.
that was like a
Well,
good.
yeah, it's not a trilogy though, so we're talking about like the middle. I generally, this was always my initial impression was like, you know, in trilogies, second book is always the weakest because you have the first book like nostalgia and love, and then it's like you have and a lot of people are just doing a lot of setup for the third book, and so third book comes back. I enjoy it. I don't know. So that's like, that's my gut reaction because that's how I've always ranked it. Was like Final Empire, Well of Ascension, Hero of Ages, with Final Empire slightly higher, just because of like that, like the attachment that you get from like the nostalgia of like creating something new, with the Final Empire. But there's definitely like so much that happens in Hero of Ages that's like super fun and super cool, and just like it's like there's like so much great stuff. But I think this, I don't know, I'm always gonna have that like mental attachment of kind of like a first of a series, you know, and a first of Brandon Sanderson attached to the Well of to Final Empire for me. It's always going to be just hard for me to like get rid of that.
I would agree with that. Also, I want to say that the Harry Potter comparison would probably be, Goblet of Fire
When
or
Cedric-
Order of the Phoenix, like the endings of those books.
I would say it would be the Goblet of Fire because that's when Voldemort returns. And you get the first big death with Cedric. Yeah. Spoilers to Harry Potter, by the way.
I don't know. I feel like that's different to me. Like, and it's just the case of it being not a trilogy. I feel like.
Yeah. I just wanted to put that out there.
I get that.
I would say that, yeah, I really like Hero of Ages a lot, and I'm very excited to get to it. I think it is my favorite out of this trilogy. And I would definitely put it above, Well of Ascension and above Final Empire, so I am super excited to get to Hero of Ages next.
I can't wait to.
On Ewoks.
What?
Huh? What?
Because she's just
God.
saying that she likes Jedi best. So, how do you feel about Ewoks?
Star Wars episode again.
Not again.
The Empire
Be
Strikes Back.
honest, you can flay me alive later. Have only seen the Star Wars movies once. The first time I tried to watch the first Star Wars movie, I fell asleep. Gonna be honest.
Okay, well, the original.
Not a
Well, A
big
New
fan
Hope
of
is
Star
kind of
Wars.
weirdly paced. New Hope has a weird pace to it.
So, like, y'all can
If
blame
we're
me alive
doing
later.
if we're doing movies like Spider-Man 2, like with Tobey Maguire, that is the second in a trilogy that I feel is perfectly done. Like that movie ends with him like, I am Spider-Man after all. That's what I want to be. Like spoilers.
But see, question, was that one meant to be a trilogy, though?
No, it wasn't. In fact, the third one was even like it was just supposed to focus on Sandman, which is why that's the best parts of 3, and they just wanted to shove in the Venom thing, and that's why that's
Yeah.
like the worst part.
Although Bully Maguire is my favorite meme of all time.
But that was an executive decision that got forced down from the Sony. But
So it's a symptom of it being written as a trilogy then, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
is there anything in specific we are looking forward to in Hero of Ages?
I am personally looking forward to Vin and Elend getting to go to a ball together because I
knew you would
love
that
that
chapter.
scene.
I am human.
I know. Okay,
Yeah, we
so
all
that's
saw that
2
coming from John.
chapters. Yeah,
Because
those are 2 chapters that are going to be called dibs upon.
listen, I love the scene in Hero of Ages where they just swoop into the ball and they just like slam down on the ground and just walk in like they own the place and they're just like, "Hello, we're here."
That is a pretty cool
Lord
fucking scene,
Elend.
I will say.
And then he pulls
And
out a book.
I love the homage to that when Wax and
Stairs.
Sarah show up and they're just like, "Blam! Whee!"
Yes.
So good. Such a great callback.
Fantastic. Absolutely love that scene. Favorite scene. Love it. I'm so excited.
Dragon and Swiggity, what about you? One thing in particular you are excited to see in Hero of Ages?
You can go first, Dragon.
Okay.
I thought you were saying you were excited to see the first dragon. I'm like, dragon?
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Wrong book.
Right.
Yeah.
It's Tress.
I honestly barely remember Hero of Ages. It's been a couple of years now, and I only read it once, so I guess I'm just
I
looking
always
forward to all those
enjoy-
things I forgot.
Spook. Spook was always one of my favorite parts. Savantism. That's like one of the things that always just like got me so excited was Tin Savantism was just like, again, it's just like another super unique twist on magic. I'm obsessed with world building and magic and systems, but it's like just like such a and like yet another unique twist. I was like, oh, Allomancy is so amazing and all this interesting stuff, and then it's like as you learn about Furukami, you're like, whoa, this is interesting. And it's like Savantism has its own thing, and anyway, it's just like also fun. But like I always loved Spook's parts and pieces as they happened.
Oh, that was also something I wanted to bring up. Is that the books, the first one's Allomancy, this one's Ferrokemi, the next one's Hemalurgy. But also, you can kind of say the first one's Inquisitors, this one's Koloss, and the next one is Kandra.
I would say I am also excited to talk more about the Kandra and the Kandra homeland.
I would say
Let's see.
the one thing I'm looking forward to is there's so much I'm looking forward to though. The one thing I really want to do, I want to read the Sazed's in the epilogue, the epigraph, Sazed's comment about Vin. I love that. It's like it takes up almost the entire page in the epigraph, but his thing about how Vin, being the woman who held the power just before, she was the most worthy out of anybody to hold this power. Like that part makes me cry.
That's really sweet.
Hey,
where was Hoid?
Hoid was supposedly the terrorist leader that Elend ran into. I think we talked about this, and
Oh,
we basically
yeah.
discussed that
Yeah, I
it's
don't
not a
like
good
that.
enough thing, and we just ignore. Oh, we should go over the counter. That is actually a good idea.
Wait,
Do.
Hoid was the terrorist leader?
Supposedly, it's been retconned to that.
Yeah,
Brandon has said that the terrorist leader that they bump into is Hoid.
That
the
Vin and Ellen bump in, or Ellen and Spook.
the Elend and Spook bump into on their way back. There's the person who's leading the terrorist people back down
Yeah.
to Luthadel. That person is Hoid. I don't
Yes.
really like it because I don't like that retcon in there because looking at that character, it doesn't feel like
Mhm.
Hoid. That it definitely feels like it's just like pick random side character number 2.
Like in the movie, I could
that's-
definitely have like somebody dressed like Hoid just walking in the background helping people, but do not make him that character.
Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. Is so I don't really like it.
Could you do Hoid in the movies the same way? Because, like, presumably you'd want to use the same actor, I guess. Like,
I think
how would
you would
that
have.
work?
You're gonna have to pick somebody who's gonna be there for the ball.
Yeah,
'Cause-
that would be the hardest person to cast.
It would be difficult. It would be easier if it was animated, but
Yeah.
I don't think animation because like the US doesn't think of animation as like adult. So
That's
I
changing.
would highly doubt it's not really.
Ouch.
Not for
Not
movies.
enough, and Brandon's talking about it.
Not for movies. Not for movies, especially.
Mm.
Like it there are adult animation for TV shows, but it's not like serious. It's like
You either have
comedy.
kids show in the eyes of people. It's usually kids shows animation, or it's just Rick and Morty, which
yeah,
is
it's like it's adult comedy.
yeah.
And if it was an anime, that would be a different story.
Yeah.
Nah, y'all. I got this. Hoid, as played by Ryan Reynolds.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
I don't
100%.
I almost
I
I
don't
almost
like
got off the
Ryan
call.
Reynolds. I don't like Ryan Reynolds. I'm sorry.
He is totally
do I.
Hoid, especially as Wit.
No.
No.
Yeah.
I think okay, see the thing for Ryan Reynolds for me is
Okay.
he had his he was good when he was scripted, and then he tried doing ad-libbing, and people have enjoyed it so much that now that's all he does.
Sorry, have you seen Detective Pikachu?
I did, and I didn't. I don't remember how I thought about it because it was a while ago. But like, what was the one with the Rock? Redstone. The one Netflix movie where it had Wonder Woman and the Rock in it. I don't remember what it was, but he's like he and the Rock are ad-libbing the entire time. There needs to be a script, and this person why I don't
Yeah.
like the Deadpool movies is there needs to be a script. It can't just be ad-libbing.
They gotta
And I
get
think-
The Rock to play Rock.
Robin Williams was able to toe the line perfectly, where he was able to ad-lib but still follow the script, whilst Ryan Reynolds is just ad-libbing and breaks the script.
I think maybe we get. God, I wish like Gary Oldman was a little bit younger. He would be my pick for Hoid. He'd be my pick for almost everyone.
I'm partially in the camp that Brandon should play Hoyt, but that would never work.
No. I don't like it. I
get where
resent you
you're
for having
going with
suggested
that.
it. I'm sorry, but no.
Brandon plays Aiden Alcium, the voice of Aiden Alcium.
Is Dan Wells should
Sure.
play Hoid.
He can do that.
I would say the only thing that you could have him do is do something Stan Lee style where he just like shows up as like a background character.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. Like you wouldn't want him to have I wouldn't want him to ever be like a major
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't.
character.
What if he was like a Sabario or like
No, I wouldn't want him to be a major character. I would want him to be a character in the background
Felt.
that is just
Say felt.
that is not named, doesn't necessarily have to have any lines whatsoever, is just there.
Just some Baden
He's the
merchant or
carriage
something.
driver that Wit, like,
Yeah, like
abandoned.
something like that. Like just like very
I had this
small
memorized for you,
character,
Bright Lord.
very small character, not named, maybe has one line. Like
Yeah. I can get behind that. Um,
like
So in the counter, we've got there's always another secret. We had none of those. Hoid sightings, we've determined there is none. Lost crew members, we have added Orsier, Clubs, and Dachshund to the list. Ooh, Tensu.
Thank you for not including Tyndwell.
She's not a part of the original crew, so I wasn't going to. We can add an honorary.
No, she doesn't count. She's evil.
she
Uh,
is not. Okay, continue.
Dead but not. One could argue we just bring up Kelsier again in this one. But I don't think anything really fits there. And then I have not done Sazed's religions, but there was definitely the one where he gave clubs about colors.
Yeah, which wasn't like exactly parallel to the Nalthus religion, but it was like suggestive of it, right?
Yes.
It was
Um,
his inspiration. It was part of his inspiration for the.
Yep.
There was also the burial rite that he performed on that one nameless ska right at the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
Callback.
I guess at some point I'll go back and recheck everything. And I just have to remember to update that every time we get to a new religion. But is there anything else we would like to talk about? Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Well, then that's going to be it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us in our Ramblings and Predictions. Next episode, we do not know when that will be. We're going to take a bit of a break to both just relax for a while. Summer's coming right around the corner. We've all got places we want to go, people to see, things to do. We don't necessarily need to come back immediately. We also need to outline how we're going to do the next book, because that one gets really big really quickly, and it's probably going to take us a good while. But please be sure to remember that there's always another connection. Bye-bye.
Take it easy.
Have a good one.
Really?
He ate my horse.
Because I'm OCD as heck.
Also, quick question. What does BTS?
Behind the scenes.
Okay, thank you. I was so confused about that. I was like, what is this? Also, because I spend too much time around children. So, BTS is a K-pop band.
Yeah.
Of course it is. You can say that with any acronym, I feel like.
So
OWCA.
A7X.
It was just like, I
No,
found
no,
that paper and I was like, I
BTS.
don't want to post this in general.
Fair. BTS is the K-pop band.
The K-pop boy
Like-
band.
The K-pop boy band.
Are they really called BTS?
Yes.
Yeah, but it
Yeah.
means something. It's not behind the
I
scenes
don't-
in Korean.
Big
I don't
Time
know what it
It's not Big Time Rush.
It's not Big Time Rush. Though Big Time Rush, in fact, did get back together and released another album. Fun fact.
That's kind of awesome. I never really liked that show, but that's kind of cool. Like, I don't
I
know.
don't
I
even
loved-
remember which one was Big Time Rush.
I love the
I
nostalgia.
liked the show. I tried to watch it again, and I just I only got through a couple. Like, I think I got through season 1, and I was like, "This is funny," but not enough for me to finish watching this show. And also, their music isn't very good.
Ooh.
I
Gonna
never
be
really
honest.
like on Disney Channel or Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network. I never liked the live action stuff.
Same.
I always tried to
Oh,
gravitate, but I still watched like a good I remember when Ant Farm aired. I like that. Wizards of Waverly Place. I
I
love.
watched Hannah Montana religiously.
I
like-
should have known.
I knew when every episode was when the episodes were coming out, and I would make sure to turn on Disney Channel to watch the new episodes of Hannah Montana. When Hannah Montana, on the concert experience came out on the in the movie theaters, I made sure that me and my mom went to go see it, and we stood in line and waited to go see Hannah Montana, the concert experience. It was great. I also remember watching the Hannah Montana movie. It was fantastic. I loved Hannah Montana.
I think I remember seeing random episodes of Hannah Montana, but like not even caring because it was just live action. I didn't really care. It was just okay. The commercials are on for everything else. I might as well just watch this.
That was an
Honestly,
interesting
Disney.
show. Because she broke free from Hannah Montana. Like, now Miley
Yeah, I
Cyrus is her
remember
own
that.
thing. That's kind of
Literally.
amazing.
So that's what so many
When you swing nude on a wrecking ball, I mean.
that's what so many child
That's what my
stars
parents do.
have to do when they are no longer children anymore. So they have to do something drastic to separate themselves from the character. So
Mhm.
Hannah Montana did that, swinging nude on a wrecking ball. Emma Watson cut off all of her hair and did other very different characters.
Drake Bell
You
moved to
wouldn't-
Mexico and became a
Yeah,
The rule of
um,
threes.
Jeez.
I'm sorry.
Is that why they kicked him? Isn't that why they kicked him off of? Wait, I don't even remember who. I would need visuals
Are
for
you
this.
talking
My
about Drake
brain's-
and Josh?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Mhm.
thinking.
Although that show was long over.
No, I remember that going a bit when I was a kid.
Like,
Like
by the
Miranda
time all the legal
Cosgrove.
stuff, though.
Yeah.
Miranda Cosgrove just fucking cut ties with Hollywood and just dropped everything.
Yeah,
Like-
where's
Well,
she
the-
been?
She went to college. She got her degree. She's doing something else. She's not. She
Good
just
for her.
Sam
she
from
decided she didn't
iCarly.
wanna-
She did. I know
Oh,
she did.
She wrote a book about her mother.
Yeah, I remember that. I saw one other show she was in. It was dark and gritty, and it was kind of. There was this virus that killed all the adults, and it was just once I saw her, I was like, "Wait a second, you're the girl from iCarly." But she has said repeatedly she will not come back for the new show, no matter what. She
Yeah.
views it as getting back in a trench and just going in a circle.
Yeah, that's fair.
I heard
Ariana
Dan
Grande.
Schneider wasn't super cool.
Ariana Grande also has separated herself from the character of Cat,
Mm-hmm.
which was in the Victorious shows.
I haven't
Stuff.
heard about her in a while.
Ariana Grande?
Yeah, compared
Oh,
to,
you
like-
haven't been in anything apparently.
to.
Sorry, that was mean. I'm so sorry. But no, she's been filming the movie version of Wicked.
Oh, really?
Cool.
She's
Damn.
playing Glinda.
I don't know who that is, but
Yeah, I could see that.
She's the Good Witch.
oh, really?
Who in the movie is kind of this blonde, the popular girl archetype.
So it's the movie version of the stage musical.
Because every
So,
musical gets
do
a
you know
movie
what-
adaptation.
Do you know what Wicked is? Do you know Wicked? The
It's
plot of
like
Wicked
the
at all?
story of the Wicked Witch, right?
It's
yeah,
stupid.
so it's I love Wicked, and I will fight you on this.
I
never
like
read
the
or
first
saw
half. I like the first half, and then it gets stupid.
So essentially, the first half takes place before The Wizard of Oz, and it's
The movie, not the
how
character.
how Glinda, the Good Witch, and Elphaba, the Wicked Witch of the West, so they went to school together. They were roommates.
They were roommates.
Thank
They
you
were
for doing
roommates.
it. And they were roommates.
They were roommates, and they end up, and throughout the first half, so they end up becoming friends.
And everybody hates Alphaba because she has
Everyone-
green skin.
Yeah. And Glinda is the like popular girl, like she's everyone's favorite. And so she really doesn't like Elva at first, but they end up becoming friends.
Mhm.
And then in
The second half,
the
you see
second half,
events from like what happens from a different perspective.
you see it, and you see so like the Cowardly Lion, for example, was a lion cub that Elpha had rescued from a cage when he was little, that
Which
she
was so
then
dumb.
set free. The Tin Man used to be a munchkin that Elphaba's sister, the Wicked Witch of the East, cursed, and then Elphaba gave him a different curse to save his life and turned him into a Tin Man.
Because he had a crush on Glinda, but it's very stupid. And then you find out that the Scarecrow the whole time was in love and working with the Wicked Witch.
Yeah, so
What?
the Scarecrow
It just ticks me off.
was someone who was in love with Elphaba, and then they found him with her, and he was like the Prince of Oz or something. I don't know.
And that the water thing was all
and
a
then
fake to make it look like she had died.
they killed him, and then she cast this curse to try to save him, to try to save his life, because she didn't want him to die, so she turned him into a scarecrow to help save his life, to keep him from dying. So
So like Brian
John.
and Sanderson little origin stories for all these characters.
Welcome to Ars Connections. We're a bunch of mega fans bringing you news discussions about the Wizard of Oz and Wicked.
but they're making a movie of the musical, of the stage musical, and Ariana Grande is playing Glinda, the Good Witch, in it. That's what I was saying. That's where this started.
Yeah, where do you go from there?
Hello, John. Welcome.
Boy, the Ars Arcanum in these first 3 books kind of sucks.
I actually like
That's
the
better.
Ars Arcanum. I actually like the Ars Arcanum in these books because it's more like a glossary in a way. Because if you like forget who a character is, you can go and find them really
Imagine
easily
that being in the way
and
of
know what
Kings.
they are.
That would be nice.
As opposed to that would be nice in the
It would
Way of
be.
Kings. That would be nice. And they have summary of book 1. If you've forgotten what's happened, they've got a summary that's like 3 pages.
Never forget. Never forget.
That's pretty nice. I'm just saying.
Is that
I
from an
like
anime?
the Ars Arcanum.
Lavish. I don't know if mine has a summary. I think they
It's
gypped me.
probably because it's the new version.
Yeah,
I've got the original.
it was a trilogy
That's a
set, so
horrible
it came
cover.
with Final Empire. There's your summary.
This cover, I don't think this cover's that bad.
I have the original horrible
I don't
cover.
know. This is not the original horrible cover. The original horrible cover is worse than this,
Let
and
me
that
see.
is the hardcover version. This is
Oh.
not the horrible cover. That's the hardcover version that has the horrible cover on it.
Now I gotta look it up.
They
Yeah,
have
I'm
a
trying to
new one
find it
out
now.
now. I almost bought.
I know. I
Have you seen
saw it in the bookstore the other day.
It
and
looks
I was like,
really
"Oh,
nice.
This
I was
is, I was like, they have a new cover.
So is it one with Skyline of Luthadel, Vin like jumping through the air, like red
Yeah,
sun
With a
behind
Koloss
her?
sword?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. I was so close to buying it, but it was like $30 for a book I already have and have read.
I don't have space on my bookshelf for more books.
True.
I don't have space for the next secret novel that I'm supposed to get in the mail next month. I gotta find space.
That is a horrible cover. Ugh.
Oh, the one where Vin's in like. Oh, I
She's
have.
like in a ball gown and a mist cloak, and there's like the
Yeah.
top half of the face of an Inquisitor.
Could
It's
you
so
And it's
maybe
bad.
blue.
drop it in the
Like
chat?
everything's blue.
I feel like
Yeah.
I actually like that one. Is that the one that we were using as the background for season 1?
I don't think so. I feel like I have that one.
Could you drop it
I
in the
think
chat?
Like weird and curled up, like
I might have the one of that from.
Did you drop it in the chat, John?
Oh, the Portugal one looks awesome. And Sazed's the cover one on the Russia one.
See, I can't quite remember what the hardcover one looks like for this. For
Here.
Well of Ascension. I do know what the hardcover looks like for Hero Ages because my parents have that one.
Thank
All
you.
of the covers. Thank you, Coppermind. So I guess we're starting at 10.
Oh, also, if anyone wants to do something fun, oh yeah, that one's awful.
oh no, that's not the one I was looking at.
The first
Which one?
the one where she's like in a
A gown with the mist dress.
yeah.
Oh, you linked Well of Ascension.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the book we're
Are you
on
looking
right
at Final
now.
Empire?
Oh, I was looking at Final Empire.
Ah,
Mm.
Okay, so which one is the horrible one you guys are talking about?
the very first one of
That
that
one is
link I
horrible
just said.
because her corset makes it look like her back is split open.
Yeah.
Yes. And like, what
Wait.
is going on in the
That's
background?
what that is?
Are those supposed to be Koloss? Like,
I think
that
I
is
always-
supposed to be Koloss.
I always thought
Considering-
that was Zane, but now I see the Koloss sword and it can't be.
yeah, that's Vin.
I think I have the Final Empire version of
It looks
that
like
cover.
a boy
Yeah,
in the
It's
face.
always
There's a reason
been
they
described
pulled it
as
away.
looking vaguely like a boy.
I always thought that was Zane with like the spikes because yeah, it does look like looks like her back's torn open. It's like the same shade as her skin.
So I'm
Yeah.
just gonna. So the United Kingdom one, I have the 10-year. Oh, that one kind of looks cool.
Also, side note, the free download this month for June for the secret novel Kickstarter stuff is a cell crossword. That not crossword, word search. Sorry, my bad. Word search that was very fun to do. I highly recommend you should download it and print it off. Already completed
Idols
it earlier
don't lie.
this afternoon. So my boyfriend is currently right now reading Elantris, and I printed off, and he's like, "What's Cell?" And I was like, "Literally the book that you're reading right now." And he was like, "Oh."
Huh.
Once again, the Polish cover's knocking it out of the park.
The Polish with Elend just in front and center.
Oh yeah, in his badass white uniform with the dueling cane.
Yeah,
yeah.
that looks. But I bring up the Portugal one. The Portugal one looks awesome.
But that's why I like the Hero of Ages mass market paperback hardcover. Or soft cover, sorry, mass market paperback cover. As
Russia's
Elend on
looks-
it for Hero of Ages.
The mess. Oh, I have the hardcover, the original hardcover, the original first place markback with an error in it. Nah.
Look
What's
at
the
you
error?
all special.
It's not a cool error. It's just they forgot to cut some of the pages, so if you open it, like a good section of them like jut out. It was really weird.
The Georgia cover is pretty cool too. It's just Colas.
Georgia, where's Georgia? Bulgaria.
Of course
Lithuania.
you would think that's cool, John.
It is cool.
Oh,
Don't
yeah.
argue with me.
Those are your favorites.
You don't like
I
the
love
Japan
Colas.
#3 one? That might be
You
the
mean
worst
the Colas
Colas.
in 3 bikinis? No, I don't like that.
Okay, are we ready to get started?
I don't think so, but I think we should. Allomancer, and not just a full. He's like the strongest Allomancer there is on the entire planet right now.
Spoilers, we don't know that yet.
True fact.
We saw him get the bead that turned him into a Mistborn, and we know
That
that
doesn't mean
Allomancers
anything.
in the old
That
day.
You're
Nope,
assuming,
nope.
you're making assumptions. You're making assumptions right now. We don't know that until the beginning of the next book.
Your desire for Ellen to be a badass is overriding your patience for where we are in the story, sir.
I'm gonna make a note somewhere.
I
Swiggity, I want
also
you to save this clip and then just shove it to the beginning of Hero of Ages.
Also, this is just a side note, and you can cut this out in spoiler, but whose name are you going to say? Because no one else dies in this series in book 3 other than Vin and Elend, and, like...
Spoiler!
She
I
said
know, that's,
to cut it.
I did say at the beginning.
Nothing, I was just trying to make sure that Clubs and Dachshund were the two that died in this one.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to check. I was like, whose
Always
name
making
are you trying to say?
every time I join, you guys are making Swiggity so much work.
Right
And you
down
also
in the
come
tabs,
in,
man.
okay, you just jot a note down. You jot the note down, and then you just
True.
wait until it's spoiler time, man. Like,
But it wasn't a necessary spoiler. It was just a...
The two main characters dying is not the necessary spoiler!
No, I mean, that... I was saying that, like... No, that's not what I'm saying was a necessary spoiler. I'm saying that that my question of who was it that Raider was trying to say is not a necessary spoiler.
Right,
I
unless you're
often
gonna
confuse ham and clubs, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't just gonna say ham.
Okay.
That's all I was trying to do. So I guess we're coming back again in 3, 2.
Wait, can I say something?
Sure.
Ham and Clubs, they both kind of have sandwich sounding names. All right, go ahead.